Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the Salescast Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we are on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
Darrell here, and I'm excited to announce that Larry's book, Selling from the Heart, has been picked up by a New York publishing house and is now available for pre-order on the barnesandnoble.com website. The movement of authenticity is gaining momentum, and it would be beneficial to have the book available not just online, but also on the shelves of Barnes & Noble stores. To make this a possibility, we would like to get pre-orders for as many copies of Selling from the Heart as possible in order to demonstrate the book's popularity. So those who pre-order the book on barnesandnoble.com are going to receive over $250 in special bonus items as a token of our gratitude for supporting this huge goal. To show your support, pre-order Selling from the Heart on barnesandnoble.com and then go to sellingfromtheheart.net/book to get access to your special bonus items. We are so grateful for your support as we continue to build this movement of authenticity in the sales profession we all love. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
We have everything's going fantastic. We have so much stuff going on, but you know what? I've really been looking forward to this guest this week on the podcast, Darrell. I don't know about you. We're all in for a treat on this one.
Yeah, today's guest is brilliant, insightful, great looking, and humorous. You're absolutely going to love this conversation with none other than Larry Levine, author of Selling from the Heart. This is going to be a fun conversation today about the book and about what's changed over the last 5 years since it was first published and what hasn't changed. We're going to have a great time today. But hey, for those of you who are new, welcome to Selling from the Heart. You've joined a growing community of sales professionals that are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, building trust. We call that Selling from the Heart. And you're in good company today. Speaking of good company, Larry, it's always fun, the conversations that we get to have with people in the Selling from the Heart community.
Oh, we get into some really good conversations. I got to give a quick shout out to someone who's near and dear to me, and it's near and dear to the Selling from the Heart community. And that's none other than Dave Tegmeyer. And if there's somebody who epitomizes Selling from the Heart, it's Mr. Dave Tegmeyer. We're all about doing the inner work. The inner work fuels the outer success. You all will have the transformation in Dave over the last couple of years. Simply amazing. Shout out to you. We love you, Dave Tegmeyer.
We do. Dave Tegmeyer, you're incredible. You rock, man. What an encouraging guide. This is one of the great things about Selling from the Heart. Even as we talk about the book, now all of this started before the book 5 years ago. It started as an idea for a podcast. And Larry, I remember 5 years ago, you were, of course, we had a sales training company and things were going great. And you came to me and said, Darrell, we need to do a podcast.
Oh boy, can you imagine if that didn't happen? What would have happened? You never know, right? But I'm just a big believer. Things happen for a reason. And it was just, gosh, here it is 6 years ago plus now. It was just something that just came to my mind. And the simple reason is, a lot of you who follow the Selling from the Heart podcast, you both know Darrell and I came out of the Office Technology channel. And there was a saying that Darrell and I always used to share with each other. We got to jump over the fence. We got to jump over the fence, right? There's greener pastures outside of what we know.
But, and we found a whole community of people that resonated. And what was so funny about the podcast was I was the skeptic, I said, Larry, look, there's no one's going to listen to you and me talking on a podcast. And hey, if you're listening in right now, we have at least one listener plus Larry's mom. And this has been fun, though, because what ended up happening, of course, I was skeptical. And I remember one day we're getting ready to present at a conference in Las Vegas, like all the other conferences. We're standing in the lobby of the Bellagio, and you're coming at me again. If Larry is anything but persistent, And I said, okay, if we did a podcast, what would you call it? And you said
Selling from the Heart. And then all of a sudden, right, you're sipping coffee or something like that, and you just go, what? And I know Darrell like the back of my hand, and his wheels were turning instantaneously. He goes, ooh, I like it. And
that's good.
It was, and it was simply, it hit me just because when I carried myself in the office technology channel, and I was in a highly commoditized channel, busy marketplace in Los Angeles area, is the way I stood out is I wore my emotions on my sleeves. I'm a highly relational guy. I love the art of building relationships and truly getting to know somebody. And instantaneously, it just hit me. Let's just call this thing Selling from the Heart.
And there it was born right there. And you know what was so fun is it started this journey because I think we both realized, especially out of the nature of the sales training that we're doing, that really what sales professionals were struggling with more than anything, more than any tactic, more than any technique, more than any platform to communicate on, they were struggling with bringing their authentic selves to the table. They were struggling with building relationships, communicating value, and all of that around what's evolved into today, the trust formula. And this was, I think that realization, it was right there in the name saying, look, we need to get to the authentic part of ourselves. And this is why I love the subtitle of the book, How Your Authentic Self Sells You, because this is the differentiator. Don Barden was talking with us last episode about the reality that your three biggest competitors, there's not much difference. Let's just be honest. Your top three competitors, if they're in this deal with you, what are you going to do to differentiate? And we found something here in Selling from the Heart and being authentic that allows sales professionals in all industries to shine like a star among a world of the phrase empty suits, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's How Your Authentic Self Sells You. And as I started thinking about it, it was a journey that I went on a long time ago. And you really, I always said it, in order to bring your authentic self to the forefront, you got to do work. It's not just, hey, I'm being my authentic self, but it's, are you? And I'm not here to lay any dark shadows on the sales work, because I love the sales profession. But and I don't mean to disrespect the sales profession in no way, Darrell, but in order to bring your authentic self to the forefront, you really got to know yourself. That's why one of my favorite sayings is, to know thyself is to value thyself. Yeah. And you got to be willing to do the work. You got to open up the cupboards. You got to open up the cupboards of who you are, which means you may not like what's inside, but that's okay. It gives you room to change and improve. If you're willing to do that, if you're willing to connect to your heart, watch what starts to happen. And I was a skeptic a long time ago until I really unpacked this with my very first business coach and really what it meant to go on that journey. And by the way, you've been a big inspiration to me as well, because, you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And you always say you got to have somebody in your camp that believes in you more than you believe in yourself.
So true. And that back at you on that. And what was really cool once this podcast began and once we stumbled through those first few episodes.
Hey, really, Darrell, I got to say something really quick. So I just got to let you all into the inner part of this. Is Darrell and I were both saying, what are two ex-copier guys, right? Those are air quotes, copier guys, going to talk about that anyone will listen to? But we figured it out. We figured out how to speak about things and how to engage people on topics that people were thinking about, but not too many people are actually speaking about.
That's right. And what's been so fun about this podcast now, and I don't even know how many episodes, hundreds of episodes in now, 7 years weekly on Saturday mornings coming out. What's been really, really cool about this podcast is we've been able to talk with authors, thought leaders from inside the sales profession and kind of around the edges in leadership and personal development, and a whole some professional athletes, and really unpacking and asking, of course, everyone knows that the episodes begin with the question, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart? And this is, what's been really cool is I think what happens. We approach this with an open mind of curiosity. And I think a lot of the guests come on and they end up saying things that maybe they've never said before either. And we have some really beautiful moments here on the show.
Yeah, there's two, and there's two I'm going to share, and these two that I'm going to share plays out on why doing the inner work is so important. I remember the first person, who came back, and it was actually jaw-dropping moments. When there's silence on a podcast for like 3 or 4 seconds, right? That seems like an eternity, and it's awkward silence. But we just work through it. But we asked the guests, what's it mean to you to sell from the heart? And this person went on to say this: it's hard to sell from the heart if your heart is broken.
What an honest moment.
It's an honest moment, but let's just think about that one for a moment, Darrell. We can talk about what selling from the heart is all day long. But what happens if that heart is broken? You're going through periods where you're going to get your heart broken. And guess what? Hang out in sales for any length of time, your heart's going to get broken.
Yeah, and layer on just life in general around that. And I think this is what's ended up coming out of this is we've seen a lot of sales professionals across multiple industries grab onto this. Some saying they've been looking for this forever. Others going, I'm willing to give this a try, and begin to not only start to enjoy greater success in their sales career, but also greater satisfaction. And to me, that's a double win, because one of the things we've definitely uncovered that we kind of knew, but in the guests that we've talked to over the last couple of years, is the mental health state of the sales profession is not very good at all. And I think that's being kind. But when we begin to do some of the inner work and sell from the heart, not only are we able to be more successful and more engaged, we're also able to enjoy this wonderful career of sales, this wonderful profession more, and find fulfillment. And that's what I love seeing. You talked about Dave Tegmeyer earlier. You just think about so many friends that we've met, many of them now in the Selling from the Heart Insiders group, who are looking at their career in a whole new light. And they're actually, once again, they're selling more, they're doing great. And even in the slumps, they're finding fulfillment because they've come at this from a position of authenticity and with a heart of service. And this was one of the things that really came out as we started talking on the podcast, and ended up getting woven into the DNA of the book, which was first published 5 years ago, is this whole concept of coming to sales with the heart of a servant.
Absolutely. And by the way, I talk about being a servant in chapter 6 of Selling from the Heart, but I just have to share the last one, because it just really just plays on what you were just saying, Darrell, is the second guest who come on the podcast. Again, obviously we ask, what's it mean to you to sell from the heart? First words out of this person's mouth is, it depends on what's in your heart. Again, goes back to how your authentic self sells you. You have to be willing to do the inner work. When you uncover who your true self is, when you uncover what's in your heart, amazing things start to happen. But it's just how you can connect and how you can relate to people. You just don't have to worry about putting on a mask. You don't have to worry about getting called out, being an empty suit. And I say being an empty suit, I mean, again, it's no disrespect to anyone. It's just to get people to think, right? And you can leave the suit part out of this. This is bringing the empty part of this for a moment, right? There's a lot of empty people out there. We're all human beings, but what's in your heart? Do you have an empty heart or a full heart?
Oh, so powerful. Well, I want to continue the whole story, because we started doing this podcast, and then one day, without going into too much detail in the interest of time, Larry and I were on an epic road trip, and I had about 8 hours of windshield time right next to Larry Levine. And I somehow, I think about 45 minutes into the trip,
Dude, it wasn't even 45. Dude, it wasn't even 45 minutes.
I said, Larry, you have to write a book. You've got to write a book. And boy, I think it took 8 hours of windshield time to wear you down, Larry. But by the end of that trip, when we got to where we were going, I think you finally, just out of pure exhaustion, said, okay, I'll do it.
I just wanted you to be quiet because I heard enough of it, right? But I mean, I love you, Darrell, but in all seriousness, though, just a couple second backstory on it. Darrell knew I wanted to write a book. And the only other person who really knew I wanted to write a book was Robin, my wife. But you just kept poking and prodding. And we were talking about topics of the book, right? And Darrell's just peppering me this whole time, right? Hey, I think you should call it this. I think you should write about this. And I said, no, man, if I'm going to agree to write a book, I want to write a book that's going to pack a punch, that someone's not going to read once, barely read, throw on a bookshelf, never to open again. I want to write something that's going to just carry on and on and on. And so I remember again, Darrell goes, well, what do you want to call this book? Because Darrell's firing titles at me that I just kept just chomping away at. I won't even tell you some of them, but it was just, we were going down the wrong path. But I knew we had a podcast, and I knew the podcast was called Selling from the Heart. And I said, Darrell, I'm going to call the book Selling from the Heart. And I vividly remember, I could be wrong, but just, it's my story. And I remembered something Darrell saying, well, you can't do, that's the name of the podcast. It was something around that
So
nature, right? And he goes, no, come on, you can't do that. And I said, no, we're going to call this thing Selling from the Heart. Well, the book's got to have some kind of a subtitle to it and all that to distinguish it, right? We got the podcast. Now you're going to call this book Selling from the Heart. And just a few seconds later, I said, how your authentic self sells you. And I don't know where I came up with Selling from the Heart podcast that quick. That's how I knew I carried myself. But I knew we were onto some. I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know what it would transpire to. But we doubled down on it. And look what's happened. I mean, there's no way. There's no way if. Right. And just for you all know, Darrell and I have known each other decades now. I mean, we met a couple decades ago, and there's this something about, how we meshed together. I mean, we just clicked from the first time we met each other. But Darrell knew, I think the marketing side of him, Darrell probably knew I was onto something. I just didn't know. I was just, hey, let's just see what happens. Because I had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know if 5 people were going to read the book or 500 people were going to read the book. I don't know. let's just run with it and see what happens.
Well, so at that point, 2 things happened. First of all, we're like, we got to have a book cover, and then we got to have someone to edit the book. Because I don't know if you've read Larry's writing or not.
Oh, stop. Hey, stop. Okay, I got to admit something, Darrell. You wind me up. You wind me up like none other. But I will admit, my writing 7 years ago, was horrible. Absolutely horrible. But it's only through practice that it became better. Right. And it was only through reading and being curious and engaging in conversations with other people who've written books and their journey that I became better at writing.
So Keenan challenged you. Remember that? Keenan challenged you to write a blog every week. And you've already done that for about a year when you started writing this book. Yeah.
So just a quick backstory on that is I remember you know what? The podcast was just podcast wasn't even around yet. I don't think.
Yeah. We'll have to go back and check the archives.
I'll just have to check the archives and the dates, but I remember this was Christmas, around Christmas time of 2015. So yeah, the podcast wasn't even out yet. I was connected to Keenan, but loosely connected. I mean, we were LinkedIn friends and that was just about it. And I'm using friends loosely, but I had just finished reading Not Taught which is Keenan's first book. And I just make it a point when I read a book, I try to connect to the author, reach out to the author if it impacted me in a certain way to let this person know you wrote a great book. And I find myself in a deep conversation with Keenan a couple weeks before Christmas 2015. We got into a great 45-minute conversation. And I remember somewhere in that conversation, he asked me, where am I going to go with all of this? And quite frankly, I had no ideas, right? It's late 2015. Selling from the Heart doesn't even exist. None of this really exists. We're just doing sales training and coaching in the Office Technology channel. And Keenan shared with me how he got noticed. And he said, Larry, in the world we live in today, you got to speak to your target audience, the people who you would like to do business with. Write something, write articles, inform them, educate them, even challenge them, inspire them. And something that he said triggered. And I just said to Keenan, I'll make a commitment to you. I'll write something every week. And in Keenan in all his infamous glory, and I'm not going to use the words he used, but if you all know Keenan, you know the words he uses. And he says, don't do it for me, do it for yourself. And I said, well, I'm on this call. I will make a commitment to write an article every single week. Well, folks, That goes back to December of 2015. I've never gone back on my promise. I have written an article every single week since December of 2015. The writing's become better. It's how the message got noticed. It's how I built the community. It's how we built Selling from the Heart. It's how we've built this was through the power of writing and speaking to our audience and building our community.
Well, I love this. And, I just want to just put a pin on this because I think a lot of times, we go, well, I'm not really good at that, and some different things, right? Well, the only way to get good at something is to do it. And you're absolutely right, Larry. You went from really never writing a whole lot before and to writing weekly, to writing a book. And two things happened. We needed a design. Shout out to our friend Jeremy, who came back with this on the first try. Beautiful.
It's just beautiful.
Book. I would just love you, Jeremy. This was so good. And then we needed someone to edit the book because someone's got to correct all of Larry's spelling mistakes. And what was fun about that was we went out there and we're like, we didn't know anything about publishing.
Zero.
And we found our friend Kim Thompson Pender. And Kim has become a dear friend. And, one of the things we've been doing in the podcast is at the middle of each show, we've been asking the question, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart? We thought it would be fun to have Kim answer that question. So Kim sent us a video. Listen to our editor, Kim at RTI Publishing, about what it means to her to sell from the heart. After word from our sponsors, then we'll come back and continue this fun conversation.
Larry here. Unleash your business potential with Work Better Now. Get access to top-notch, full-time remote talent that delivers results from day one. Say goodbye to tedious admin tasks and time-consuming hiring. Whether you need an executive assistant, want to grow your team, or simply want to free up your time so you can sell more, Work Better Now has got you covered. Their carefully vetted and matched remote workforce will streamline your operations. Join Darrell and I in experiencing the positive impact of Work Better Now. Our assistant Carmen has been with us for almost 2 years, and she has been a tremendous benefit to our team. Book a free consultation at workbetternow.com and transform your business today. Use promo code HEART to receive $150 off for your first 3 months.
If you want to make a difference in the lives of your clients, your family, and community, then you need to sell from the heart. What does selling from the heart mean to me? To me, it is an exchange in value where initially you are going to give more than what you receive. Now, in the world's training, this is so opposite to what they teach. But the good book says, give and it will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over. It is always better to give than to receive. And the funny thing is about giving is that it comes back to you. And what are some of the ways when you are a Selling from the Heart champion and you give from the heart, what are some of the ways that it comes back to you? Well, it comes back to you in referrals. It comes back to you in introductions to people that will make a huge difference in your life. It will come back to you in when you need help from your clients. They will be there for you because you have been there for them. And of course, it will come back in finances and recognition for a job well done. I want to just take a moment as I close to challenge you to become a Selling from the Heart champion and to start making a difference in someone's life today.
Oh, I love it.
I love Kim.
Shout out to Kim. And I mean, you can see now the heart that was behind the editing of Selling from the Heart, which I think just took something really good and made it awesome. And just forever grateful. And, I think just to make another note on this, Larry, you started when you weren't good at it. You just got started. And then along the way, we found people to help us out. And I think this is, when you step into an area, for you, it was becoming an author. You needed somebody to help you out on that journey that knew about how to bring a book to market, how to set it up, how to edit it, how to format it. And it was in September of 2018 when this baby finally got launched. And Larry, that's coming up on 5 years ago. 5 years ago. And in a moment, I want to ask you just about that journey. But one of the things, if you've been listening to the podcast here over the last couple of weeks, you've heard the good news. And the good news is that when we first published Selling from the Heart, we were brand new. We didn't know what we were doing. We put it out on Amazon, the place where we went, some people go to buy books, and we said, hey, we're going to self-publish this. But what ended up happening is, Larry, because of the movement, because of the people that came alongside of this, because of the community around it, and just the momentum, the way this has resonated with the sales profession, you got the attention of a New York City publishing house, and Selling from the Heart is now being re-released as a book. It's exciting. It's a similar book. It's got just a few edits in it. But the most important thing for everyone in our audience is Selling from the Heart is being re-released with a New York City publisher across our stores like barnesandnoble.com. And this is going to allow Selling from the Heart. It had a little bit of an audience, but now the stage has just gotten bigger. The tent has gotten bigger. And what I'm so excited about now is, with Selling from the Heart available on barnesandnoble.com, we're just expanding the reach of this movement. And here's what I want to just let everybody know before we take another stroll down memory lane. One of the goals and one of the things we've learned about being authors and publishing books is the goal. What we really, really want to do is we want to get Selling from the Heart off the website, or not just on the website of barnesandnoble.com. But how cool would it be to walk into a Barnes and Noble sometime in the not too distant future? You walk in, you smell it right away. You get your cup of coffee, stroll down the aisle, the business aisle in the sales and marketing section, and see Selling from the Heart there. Imagine what that could do. And to get there, what we need to do is we need to demonstrate that the community and the emotion behind Selling from the Heart is worthy of getting that book on the shelf. So we're making an ask to everybody in our audience and all of our friends right now this summer. Go to barnesandnoble.com and pre-order the re-release of Selling from the Heart for us. And as a thank you, we're going to give you $300 in special bonuses. But it would mean a ton to Larry, and it would mean a ton to Selling from the Heart if you would go out and do that. I know it seems small, but if all of us go out and buy a copy, and maybe even grab a copy for your friends or for a gift to one of your clients, that copy, it's going to officially re-release in August. And between now and then, we're going to give you $300 in special bonuses. Just go to sellingfromtheheart.net/pre-order. And this is the time right now in June where we want to just get as many, get the attention of our friends at Barnes and Noble, because we know that as this movement continues to grow, that we've struck a chord. Larry, you've struck a chord in the sales profession. And I'm curious, why is it, do you think, that this book has resonated? It came out on day one as a bestseller on the platform we released it on. Since then, it's been in the top 100 sales books several times. I mean, it's just really, we've have audience all over the world on this. Why do you think this message is resonating so much inside the sales profession?
Oh, oftentimes I even think about that myself, Darrell. I'm like going, what is it about it? I just poured my heart into writing this book. It's me. I tell people all the time, I live, breathe, and eat and sleep Selling from the Heart. It's how I carried myself. And I believe the book's a journey into me. It's how I carried myself as a salesperson. But I think more than anything else is I believe that people who read it, I'm giving them permission to go inward, is giving them permission to say, it's okay to self-reflect. And I think the biggest thing too, and I remember a near and dear friend of mine who's very close to me one day, she had said, she goes, Larry, I read your book and I felt like you were just reading it to me, like you were there. And it just goes back to have a very conversational way to write. But I always, a special shout out to Tasia Valenza on this one, because when she came on our podcast years ago, she talked about how you have to invite people in with your voice and how your tonality and your reflection. Well, I just simply invited people inward to read the book, to self-reflect, to get them to think differently. But I gave them permission to say, it's okay. And here's the other thing I started to realize. People were starting to come to me saying, this is the way I always thought.
Right.
But somebody actually put it into a book that actually makes sense. I'm a very simple guy. This isn't college level things I'm writing about. This is real world. I call it street level. You can read this, apply each chapter, and instantaneously become better. But it just resonated. And that's, I think, what resonated when the New York publisher caught wind of this was, and I remember them vividly saying this, and you were on a lot of those calls, Darrell, is 20% of it was your book. 80% of it's your story. And, this whole time, if you follow us at Selling from the Heart, I'm all about building an engaged community. I constantly engage and I constantly challenge, but I've earned the right to do that because I correspond. I invite people in. I get them to think differently. I'm constantly educating them. I'm inspiring them. I'm influencing them to think differently about themselves and how they carry themselves. And that's what the book's all about.
Absolutely. And I think the reason it's resonating, I love what you said, and we've heard this from so many people. I've felt this way about sales for a long time. Finally, somebody wrote a book about it. Finally, somebody, and this is what's so beautiful about Selling from the Heart that I just absolutely love is this community of authentic sales professionals and authentic leaders that has risen up literally all over the world. It's been amazing, the people that we've been able to meet through Selling from the Heart, and people saying, yes, I believe in being genuine. I believe in being authentic. I believe in building trust. This is the way I sell. And we've been able to gather that community together. And this is what I'm so excited about now here, as we approach the re-release of the book and the 5th anniversary of Selling from the Heart, is that, Larry, this is just going to continue to grow. The book has been available on one platform, and now it's heading out into Barnes and Noble, which Barnes and Noble is, once again, I just love walking in the store with that cup of coffee. And if everyone will step up and help with this movement, we hope to see paper copies right there when you walk into your local Barnes and Noble. But that's, as we wrap this up, I think what's really happened out of this and I'm most excited about, Larry, is this started as a podcast and it turned into a book. And really what it's become is a movement in the sales profession. And to me, what's going on out there as like-hearted people are getting together saying, yes, this is how I want to lead my sales team. This is how I want to sell. Even CEOs are coming up to us and saying, we want to be a Selling from the Heart company. Like this aligns with our corporate culture and vision. That's where you go, okay, this is super, super cool. What's going on here in the sales profession. And if you're kind of solo by yourself listening to this podcast, I want to let you know there is a movement happening, and it's happening all over the world across multiple industries in this profession that we all love called sales, where salespeople are saying, I'm in on this. I want to sell from the heart.
Yeah. And here's what I want us to think about, because I went through this and I'll just leave everyone, with something to really think about is you're not going to be thought of as an outcast by bringing your genuine, authentic self to the forefront. And I thought about that for a long time in the channel that I grew up in until I finally said, I've had enough, right? I can't be somebody who I'm not. And the only reason why I'm saying this is I believe in my heart, we're all authentic human beings. It's how we choose to carry ourselves. Well, in the sales world, if you go back in time, and when I say go back in time, I'm talking 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago. We can even push this well into 100 years ago. The greats of that time were talking about the same thing. That's what grew their companies to the size they grew their companies. Is they brought their authentic, genuine self to the forefront. It's okay. Where trust sits today in the sales world, it's anemically low. You have to bring sincerity. You have to build trust. You have to bring your authentic self to the forefront if you want people to continue to come back for more and
That's
more
right.
and more. It's as
That's
simple
right.
as that. It just requires massive action.
I love it. I love it. What a fun conversation and journey down memory lane, and really also just looking forward, Larry. The next 5 years, the first 5 years we've gathered this community. Imagine this conversation 5 years from now, as Selling from the Heart has found its way. Not just online, but as people are wandering down the aisles of their local Barnes and Noble. And I know I'm pushing this hard, everybody. I really sincerely, I ask everybody that listens to this podcast to go to barnesandnoble.com, search for Selling from the Heart, and then come back by our website. We'll give you $300 in bonuses as a thank you. But this is something we can all push into together. And I know Larry will never ask as directly as I will on this.
No, yeah.
This is something we can all push into together as a community. And when we were able to get the more momentum behind this movement, I think we're all going to win from this. So Larry, just imagine 5 years from now, where this is going to be. It's fun to dream, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Because God, 5 years from now, you're going to be older than me. Oh my gosh, Darrell. No, but all sincerity, I mean, if I look back 5 years ago and fast forward, who would have thought summer of 2023, all this would happen? Now, if we push this out 5 years and it's the summer of 2028, who knows where Selling from the Heart and what's following Selling from the Heart? But those are surprises, but not for now. But this has been an epic journey. And first of all, I'm so grateful you've been on this with me from day one. It's, you've pushed me and pushed me and pushed me and pushed me and pushed me to do things way out of my comfort zone. But together we've brought something to the forefront that's going to leave a legacy way past us.
I love it. Well, what a fun conversation. And it's so exciting to see the movement that's happened. And to everyone listening in, I want you to remember, start taking action, even when you're not good at something. Find some other people to help you out and look at what can happen when those two things happen. So we've got a great summer ahead. There's going to be a lot of fun things, or a lot of incredible guests. So make sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends in sales, maybe even your clients. Until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust. Go to www.barnesandnoble.com, buy a pre-order of Selling from the Heart, and most of all,
Sell from the heart.